Hello and welcome. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Through the course of next 1 hour, we will be talking about what's bleeding the Indian markets. Remember, Indian markets have lost as much as 17 lakh crore worth of equities in the last 5 trading sessions. Also on the show, artificial intelligence reigning in but continues to be a divide, and how to upskill yourself for AI. All that and more on Morning Brief at 9. Let's begin with the top stories we are tracking this morning. Investors lose as much as 17 lakh crore rupees in 5 trading sessions. Sensex crashes 1.3% on Tuesday in the wake of Trump tariffs on steel and aluminium. Investors lose nearly 16.97 lakh crore rupees in the 5 trading sessions. That saw Indian benchmark index slide 3%. Persistent foreign investors selling and the Indian rupee hitting a new low against the US dollar amid growth slowdown turns investor sentiment bearish. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi pushes for trust and transparency in development and deployment of artificial intelligence at the Paris AI Action Summit. Advocates for ethical and inclusive AI use, aiming to harness the potential of technology for societal good. The Prime Minister's stance underscores India's commitment to responsible AI innovation. Prime Minister Modi is also set to meet US President Donald Trump on his visit to the United States starting today, with key discussion anticipated on trade relations, tariff structures and visa policies. The agenda aims to strengthen bilateral economic ties between the two countries and bolster the strategic partnership between India and the US. A meeting with Elon Musk is also on the cards. In a controversial move, US President Donald Trump has announced a pause on enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits US companies from bribing foreign officials. The decision will likely benefit Adani Group. Investors reacted positively to the news and Adani stocks rallied up to 4% in intraday. India is not expected to lift its ban on Chinese investments anytime soon, according to Chief Economic Advisor V. Anantha Nageswaran. Speaking at an event in Mumbai, he emphasized that both countries must recognize their mutual dependence before any policy shift can happen. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman told Lok Sabha yesterday that 99% of government borrowings for the fiscal year 25-26 will be allocated towards capital expenditure. She said that India's capex allocation at 15.4 lakh crore rupees is about 4.3% of the GDP for financial year 26. With the fiscal deficit slated at 4.4%, she said 99% of the borrowings will go towards capital building and not revenue receipts. Addressing concerns over the depreciating rupee, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman cited former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan, acknowledging that the decline of the INR is in fact based on strengthening of the US dollar. FM was speaking in Parliament on the reply on budget. And the Indian rupee, meanwhile, appreciated 71 paise to close at 87 rupees against the dollar, which analysts attribute to potential forex selling by the Reserve Bank of India. Remember, RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra had said that RBI has US dollar reserves of over $630 billion, while saying that he is keen on market forces to determine the value of the rupee and not excessively central bank operations. And Labour is unwilling to move to work due to availability of direct benefit transfer, says L&T Chief S.N. Subramanian, who was in news earlier, remember, for the 90-hour work week comment and staring at wife controversy. He said that the labour shortage in construction industry is due to welfare schemes of the government. And those are the top stories we are tracking here on Morning Brief at 9. But first up, the Paris AI Action Summit, co-chaired by France as well as India on 10th and 11th of February, concluded yesterday and brought global leaders together, from Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron to US VP JD Vance and billionaires like Sam Altman and Sundar Pichai to discuss the future of artificial intelligence, focusing on sustainability, ethical development and inclusive global governance. The US stand against over-regulation and pro-AI growth was clearly expressed by JD Vance, even as Prime Minister Modi pushed for trust, transparency and inclusivity using AI for social good. While India, China, Japan and Australia were among the 60-odd signatories, the US and the UK refrained from endorsing joint communique, making it clear that the world is split on its approach towards AI. Meanwhile, India is set to host the next Global AI Summit later this year. On the show today, we ask, trust or transparency versus over-regulation? Where is the AI story headed from here? Open source for society or build for businesses? What is the AI code? How will it model going forward? And ethics versus profitability. In fact, can AI find a solution, a sustainable midway? Whether there will be a balance found between ethics and profitability going forward. And also energy guzzling data centers that they operate on. Should green AI be a priority, given that AI is not going away anytime soon? Those are some of the questions we'll be pondering over. Joining me on the show is Anurag Dua, partner EY. Also with us is Dr. Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher and corporate advisor. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out. I want to first come to you, Srinath. There seems to be a clear divide today on where the future of AI is headed, and that divide was more seen and prominent during the course of discussion on AI Action Summit in France yesterday.
Morning, Shweta. I think it's a kind of a misnomer to think that the governments are going to agree on anything as a consensus around AI. We've been speaking about this for, I think, last 1.5 years. AI is going to be the newest power tool, call it a geopolitical tool or a sovereign tool. And while every nation would want to use the word called collaboration, but it will come as a subset of their, I think, ownership and influence in the global domain. So I'm not a great fan that we're going to see, you might have all the signatories, nations coming together and signing, but how do we even know that they're not developing something on the side, at the background, on their own, and with deniability? And the challenge with AI is you can build in a lot of deniability because there are no regulations. That's one. Two, how do we even regulate? Governments, sovereigns, by principle, want control, want to feel in charge. But AI is going to suddenly pull that rug under them, saying that, hey, do you even know what you're talking about? And I think that's the biggest challenge with that. There are concerns about, can you even regulate AI? We have had this debate in India about should we put guardrails or should we have regulations? Could we keep changing, update the regulations as we go along? And I think not much has been done around regulatory framework, even globally. You look at the three different distinct models that we have today in AI regulation. You have the laissez-faire US regulation, which is more about deregulation, wanting the market forces to shape it. Then you have EU, which believes that regulations and controls and sanctions would work. And then you have the Chinese model, where everything around AI, whether it is private sector or state-owned, is actually about statehood, that the state will have dominant control for it being a tool. Where does India come into this picture? And I think that's my concern, more as a citizen, not just as a policy researcher, that we don't seem to know what we want.
Anurag, do you agree with that? We are not sure of what we want. Although Prime Minister says we want trust, we want transparency, but as Srinath was pointing out, it's very difficult to be able to trust any other government and any other country out there that says we're not doing enough or we are open to sharing what we know so far on AI. And we saw that by the way of DeepSeek coming in as a shocker to perhaps everybody around the world.
So, in fact, I do agree with Dr. Srinath on some of the points that he mentioned. And I would say we are still a bit early days to have that debate on trust versus transparency or ethics versus profitability. I think in the times to come, probably we'll solve some of those things. I think Paris Summit, at least one of the things that I see has been good is that at least we have started discussing on a global framework. There are talks of global collaboration. And I'm sure there would be differences that will be there. Dr. Srinath is talking about those three models, how China, EU and US are looking at it. I believe, at least the way I see, and as a practitioner, Shweta, I would say there's a lot of potential that exists, and especially for countries like us. And as I see, and again, I'm reiterating that as a practitioner, I am seeing a lot of engagement now that I'm witnessing, at least in the market, from a government side itself.
Okay.
And Prime Minister Modi did talk about some of those things. He did talk about skilling, upskilling. He did talk about AI writing the code of humanity. But on the ground level also, I see a lot of engagement now, especially in sectors which are agriculture, health, and these are some of the sectors I personally work in. Benefits
And you're saying, Anurag, sorry, you're saying that you're seeing government actively participating. Could you give us a sense of where is government participating and how?
I'll give examples. So there are specific sectors, Shweta, and I was telling some of them, say agriculture, the way the delivery systems of the government are working, public delivery systems, areas around taxation, areas around MSME growth. So these are some of the sectors where I see a lot of participation from the government, and government participation on two sides, Shweta. One, definitely what we see out there in the media about the data centers, about governments investing through their AI mission, the GPU story and all those things. That's one part of the story. Second part of the story is actually government taking a lead in productionizing use cases of AI. And I think that's one of the key things where I see a lot of government support coming up. People would have seen the recent 3 AI centers of excellence that have been set up, specifically focusing around sectors, which is agriculture, health, and sustainable cities. So that's something which I see as a big thing going forward. Those debates around the trust and transparency, ethics, profitability will keep happening. And I think we will evolve as we see how some of those use cases are actually getting productionized with them.
All right. I'm sure we'll evolve. You know, one of the conversations that unfolded that was also keenly watched and reported, Srinath, was whether DeepSeek, because that's been something that's taken the entire AI industry by storm, whether France, EU or India is going to allow its free use. And we saw that French President clearly said that we don't follow the US model and we don't care whether the tech is made in China or Russia. We use it as long as it's good for, the society at large. India is, of course, also not suggesting that there could be a regulation on DeepSeek or, Chinese tech just as yet. I think the underlying message here is as long as that code, that open source code is built for society, it can help businesses around the world. There need not be restrictions on it. Perhaps that is something we could see going forward into the year?
Shweta, I mean, theoretically, yes. And I'm using the word theoretically because a lot of these global summits are very well stage managed, event managed and well crafted outcome statements that come up, right? There's a lot that happens behind the scenes. And this is where my cynicism is. About 18 months ago, we did have the UK summit, which spoke about risks and ethical issues in AI. And if you look at it, nothing has come out of it. Not a single white paper of any single country or collaborative statement has come out after that. So this is yet another summit where, if you remember, US has not signed the joint declaration so far. It's a clear message that US doesn't care about it. I think President Macron's statement about them not subscribing to the US model is out there in the open. So the challenge is, it is just, my fear is just like the corporate India uses hashtag ESG almost to paint themselves as the glorified green saviors. I think this is no different from government saying, hey, we understand AI. And I'm actually challenging to Anurag's point. Governments don't have an option but to adopt AI in e-governance in their platforms. That's I think the brutal reality that we speak. It's almost like saying, hey, you know what, governments started using computers and PCs in 1980s. They didn't have a choice. It was a market force. So similarly today, I think the governments globally are using AI, and India is no different. And we must take pride. In India, the innovation around digital pipeline, the UPI, was actually initiated by the government and the RBI, not the private sector. So in India, government has shown, I think, the path that they can innovate. But in the AI space, I think the entire narrative around AI mission, the funding around it is so narrow, so small. And the centers of excellence are so inward because we are missing one large conversation in the room. if you don't have a very robust STEM ecosystem and R&D support, you really cannot fight this AI battle. And my fear is we will extend becoming what we already are, a nation of cyber coolies. Our ITES space has been just cyber coolies, labor arbitrage. We have not grown up the value chain. And in AI, that's a large concern. You look at Perplexity and other AI platforms. Why are the founders moving abroad and settling in and actually developing AI? Why are they not seen as an Indian company? I think there is something that we are not able to pull it together. It's not just about funding. It's also about the ecosystem.
So are you of the belief we don't have the right ecosystem just as yet, but we are getting there? I assume that's the message that was coming in from the Prime Minister yesterday, that we are getting there. We are ensuring that there is a path towards more AI adoption. And you're right, Srinath. I mean, in this country, you've seen government taking the lead when it comes to developing UPI or any other such digital public infrastructure goods that, in fact, Prime Minister also talked about yesterday when he was addressing, the AI summit. Anurag, going back to you, I think this is a debate that I think will be on for at least next couple of months before we have some clarity on where India stands when compared to its global peers on AI development. But I have to ask you, there is a constant debate on ethics versus profitability. What we saw coming up as a non-profit organization, OpenAI soon became profitable, is now becoming a business which is unrivaled, unparalleled at the moment. Where do we stand when it comes to these global giants like DeepSeek or OpenAI for that matter, and where do you see India standing in its dream to be an AI, perhaps a place where AI gets more space to grow and develop going forward?
So Shweta, 3 points if I see you have mentioned. First, that probably will take couple of more months or some more time. I would say it will be more than that. At least that's what I see. Okay. Because things will take some more time to evolve, and Dr. Srinath also mentioned that. Second, how do I see some of those things such as DeepSeek and OpenAI? I believe at some point in time, Shweta, while yes, the debates around ethics and governance and transparency will keep happening, but definitely the scales I see will be tilted more in favor of commercialization over a period of time. At least that's what I see, because end of the day, whatever we are doing will have a commercial aspect at some point in time, which will be more visible as we move along. And how do we put those guardrails, what Dr. Srinath was mentioning initially? So those things we'll have to see how as we move along this journey. But yes, commercialization will take, in my view, it will take a precedence over a period of time. That's what I see. On an India story, recently we saw that India is talking about now developing their own foundational models. So some of those initiatives are happening. I will not get into the debate that Dr. Srinath mentioned about cyber coolies and are we producing really something. So that's a very old debate. So I'll stay out of that for now. But yes, at least I see 2 or 3 things that definitely India can bring. Definitely a lot more investment into the research and thinking through why people are moving out and going somewhere else. So that remains a key point. But I also see India as a big test bed for AI, given our diversity, given our population and all those things. So there could be certain areas that India could really pick up in their AI leadership journey. I also see one of the big areas that I think everyone is talking about it is about skilling in this particular area. I have been even discussing with some of the academic institutions on how to really infuse AI right from the beginning. So there are certain areas where definitely India can take a moves along. How much are we able to develop our own foundational models? There have been views area also. You must have seen that there are views on both sides of this, that should India even go for their own foundational models and all those things. But yes, in the journey, I see that India at some point in time will evolve and have some leadership position, at least the way UPI and some of the other DPI story has unfolded in the country.
All right. Good to see that you're optimistic, Anurag, but thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you for joining us on that big AI story. There continues to be a divide globally, of course, between India and some of the signatories of that communique as far as the AI summit that concluded in Paris yesterday. But the more developed countries, Western countries, are refrained from signing that communique. I'm not too sure whether they want to be a part of that joint communique that talks about greater transparency and adoption of AI for global good. But shifting focus now, Prime Minister Modi is also set to meet US President Donald Trump on his visit to the United States, which starts today, with key discussions anticipated on trade relations, tariff structures and visa policies. The agenda aims to strengthen bilateral economic ties between the two countries and boost strategic partnership between India and the US. Now remember, a meeting with Tesla chief Elon Musk is also on the cards. So what's on the agenda? Let's take a quick look. Prime Minister will embark on his US tour today to meet Trump, as well as Elon Musk may end up discussing energy imports with the president. Is also likely to negotiate defense imports from the US. H-1B visa and illegal immigration, which made headlines in India, is also on the agenda. Trump tariffs, reciprocal tariff threats could be a key point of discussion between Indian Prime Minister and US President. And finally, Elon Musk's Starlink entry into India and Tesla's entry into India could be some of the key points of discussion with both the US President as well as Tesla chief Elon Musk today. Let's quickly go back to Srinath Sridharan. He continues to be with us. Srinath, a lot is on the cards. I mean, in the past couple of days, I think we've seen a lot coming out of US President when it comes to signing of those executive orders. I think the worst of which was a 25% tariff on both aluminium and steel, and what's to come as far as future tariffs is concerned, be it cars, pharmaceuticals and chips, which is what he's promised in Oval Office when talking to reporters. I think this is going to be an important discussion starting today. Prime Minister's visit to the US that could pave way perhaps for some exceptions to be made for India. Srinath, could you please unmute yourself?
In fact, we have two strong leaders, leaders who believe in the domestic strength of their nations, who want their nations to be globally very, very relevant, and they're going to have a part of negotiation. And if you look at their, with no disrespect, I'm using the word in a positive way, of their romance of sorts. Each time they've gone, Prime Minister Modi has visited the US last time, or the way President Trump was hosted in Ahmedabad, Howdy Modi, all of that. I think there is a personal sense of rapport that they share. And how are they going to tackle the trade issue, the technology issue? I mean, for example, India has been put in the tier 3 of the AI regime that US has, which means that India would need US approval for even buying chipsets and getting access to data models. So a lot of those conversations, and then we have the big visa issues. And I think the US, to flex its muscle, had also sent back the illegal migrants, some of them last week back home. So I think some of these are strongman tactic messaging to India that they will not hesitate to act tough. And I think it is going to be a give and take, and I look at it slightly geopolitically apart. Is this US's message to Russia and China by hitting at friends, including India, saying that, hey, buy more and reduce whatever you do with Russia? It could be one of those strongman tactics as well. And I think India, knowing India, we might have a lot of these conversations off the record, but we are not going to ever get up and kind of abuse the US in public. I mean, that's the Indian political style. Okay. We would do all these strong conversations. And I think if I don't want to read more between the lines, is US also indicated kind of diluting its bribery act? Is that a kind of...
Go ahead, Srinath, read between the lines. Tell us what you think could be, some of those key sectors that perhaps Prime Minister is going to take up with, Donald Trump today.
There were 2 points which was never on the agenda, but which would have anyway had private conversations around it. One was definitely India wanting to protect its conglomerates from the Bribery Act, not just specifically one group, but across, as more and more Indian conglomerates deal with American companies. That act could be a draconian sword hanging around their neck. That's one. India would have wanted to soft pedal it. 2 is, if you remember, the entire Khalistan extremists and the US and Canadian accusation of an Indian investigative officer, and where India had said that we will actually solve it ourselves through our judicial system. So to me, these 2 were also an irritant which US would have raised. Because US, if you remember, has not closed these issues. They've kept it as an irritant.
Absolutely.
And I think
Srinath,
some of these come very
as much as I would like to take this discussion, forward, we will of course have to wait for a couple of more hours to really see what the two global leaders will talk about in their bilateral conversations, and we'll get you back with more on as and when we have data as well as details on what's discussed between those two leaders. But that's all we have in this segment. Of course, coming up next would be upskilling for AI. What is really needed for one to really live up to the AI world? On National Productivity Day today, we will be joined by CEO of Teamlease, Karthik Narayanan.
Associate sponsor, New Virtus GT Line, style to wander.
Hello everyone, this is Papon and I am coming to Dilwalo Ki Dilli this Valentine's Day to perform for the World Travel and Tourism Festival.
Mama must be missing us, nah?
Let's take you on, babe, give me one day. Feel the itch on my skin, it's a one day. You be like it when you see we are done, hey. But it doesn't matter, just gotta get the way.
New GT Line, Tygoon and Virtus. Volkswagen.
Your promise is IGI certified. Your ambition is IGI certified. 14-step grading process, 50 years of trust. IGI Trust Certified.
One look
And I'm falling
for you like crazy. Oh, boom, boom. Every heartbeat is only for you. Every breath, every moment with you.
Shall we do it again?
My heart goes boom.
Unlimited Love. Bookings open on 14th February.
News 9.
News 9.
News 9.
News 9. News 9. News 9.
Now they're relaunching News 9.
News 9 is coming back. News 9 will be very useful for creating public opinion.
It's going to be only truth.
And I wish you all the best. And very happy and all the best.
बहुत अच्छा लगा मेरे को उनको मुबारकबादी देता हूँ.
Congratulations to News 9. All the very best.
All the very best, News 9.
I wish the channel all the very best.
Let News 9 be the voice of Karnataka and India.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Markets have opened once again in deep red for 6th consecutive day of trading session this morning. On your screens right now, Nifty down 0.11%, just about holding up at 23,045 mark, just about breaching that 23,000 crucial levels as of this morning. Sensex is down 0.22% at about 76,137 mark. Both mid-cap and small caps are also taking a substantial beating there. Mid cap down 0.5% at 50,638 mark, and small cap down nearly 0.75% at 15,954 mark. India Wix in an index of volatility is up as much as 1.14% at 15.04. So there you have it on your screens right now. Indian markets opening in red once again. Remember, there have been an equity outflow of nearly 17 lakh crore, nearly 16.95 lakh crore rupees in 5 trading days. So for 6th day today, markets opening in red. And as I said, the Indian stock markets opened in deep red again this morning. Both Sensex and Nifty have witnessed selling pressure for sixth consecutive session today. Both BSE, NSE benchmark indices crashed over 3% in the last 5 trading sessions, with equity investors suffering a staggering loss of 16.97 lakh crore rupees. Now, Indian equities fell on 11th of February, which was yesterday, with banking, metal, auto and IT industry leading the decline triggered by continuous foreign fund withdrawals. So what's really driving the stock markets down? Well, let's begin with some of the factors weighing in on market sentiments. To begin with, it's the Trump tariffs. US President Donald Trump, remember, has been dealing a blow after blow to market sentiments due to his tariff policies. Earlier this week, Trump announced a new 25% tariff on all steel and aluminium imports into the US. Well, Trump also further said that he intends to introduce tariffs on cars, semiconductor chips and pharmaceuticals next. This tariff war and resultant, tariffs from other countries, retaliatory tariffs, is not weighing in on market sentiments very positively. Next, of course, is the stretched valuations of nearly all Nifty 50 companies. The Sensex, remember, has corrected over 9% from its all-time highs of 85,978 as of 27th of September last year. Now, however, despite all the correction, the market valuation remains high, keeping investors cautious and nervous of what's to come ahead. And this has been further exacerbated by weak earnings. Weak corporate earnings remains a major factor behind the ongoing correction in the Indian stock markets. Even though the third quarter earnings have been marginally better than the last 2 quarters of financial year 25, it has failed to boost market sentiments. And all of this is resulting in outflow of capital from India. The Indian stock market has been witnessing a heavy foreign capital outflow since October last year. So far in February alone, the FIIs, or foreign institutional investors, have offloaded Indian equities worth 10,000 crore rupees, and all factors combined are further hitting where it hits the heart. Indian rupee has hit a fresh record low as of Monday. It was marginally better yesterday, but remember, on Monday it slipped 52 paise to settle at 87.95. Yesterday it was marginally up to about 87 against the US dollar on the back of RBI intervention. But the domestic currency has declined nearly 3% this year, which is weighing in again on market sentiments. And the crash, of course, that you're seeing, there's a bloodbath on stock markets again today. And shifting focus now, the National Productivity Day is observed today annually on 12th of February in India, and it is to generate awareness about importance of productivity in achieving economic growth and sustainability under the guidance of National Productivity Council, the NPC. Now, this day raises awareness that productivity is not just about increasing output. It is a more comprehensive concept that considers human resource development and quality of work. But in an era where artificial intelligence is transforming industries, it's important to integrate AI to enhance productivity, streamline processes, and reduce human intervention. It is important for businesses, individuals to adopt smart technology, upskill themselves, and focus on data-driven decision making amid all the developments in artificial intelligence space. So how is productivity defined today in the AI world, and how should you effectively use tech to be more productive? Let's talk about all of that. Joining us is Karthik Narayanan, CEO, Staffing, Team Lease Services. Karthik, good to have you back on the show. I think productivity is one topic that gets every person working in corporate India talking. What is productivity? How do you define productivity? I think we can now say for sure it's no more about working long hours. That is not what productivity is. It's not about more output in the 9 hours you clock in. It's about how much you can deliver in an hour that you spend in office.
Good morning, Shweta, and absolutely, I think you are spot on. I think productivity largely refers to, the amount of output which can progressively increase upon or improve, with a given set of input. And I think it's a really important aspect, because from an India perspective, really the question amongst many questions, if you really see it, I think the question which is asked is saying, where are the jobs? And I'll tell you, I don't think so India has as much as an unemployment problem as much as a lack of skills problem. And if you really look at, lack of skills, then it comes to lack of wages. And you really look at lack of wages, then it really boils down to lack of productivity. So all of that is really, linked amongst many things. And I think it's incredibly important for India Incorporated and for India in itself to kind of focus on productivity as an aspect. Because, let's face it, we have 65% of our population, which is less than, 35 years of age. And, every year there are 12 million, youth who are joining the workforce. So I think amongst many things, not just, basic education skilling, which is going to be important, but to be able to really make them productive is going to be the single most important, agenda in front of everyone.
Okay. And, since we are talking about AI a lot these days, I have to ask you, how do you really, develop those critical skills today in wake of the AI, artificial intelligence developments that we have seen today? What are the key skills one would require to be more employable today in light of all the AI developments vis-a-vis about a year ago?
I think there are multiple streams to this. Obviously the one which has completely exploded is the B2C, I would say, use of AI, which is at an individual level. Today, I think there are tools which are available to kind of improve your productivity as an individual level to a significant scale, largely around being able to, moderate the content, your ability to kind of research. Earlier, there would be a lot of discrete data which normal search engines would, you can kind of search it. But now it all kind of does a lot more contextual search, which kind of takes place, right? So I think at an individual level, your awareness and ability to be able to query some of these, chat GPT engines kind of leads to significant improvement in your own productivity. Of course, I think the important part will be, going forward, the difference between, one individual, another individual, or one employee and another will depend on your degree of AI literacy that you have. So I think that is one aspect that, individuals can possibly look at focusing on what is that you can do to improve. I think companies also similarly would need to focus on saying, how do they raise productivity by being able to integrate some of these newer technologies into their processes? For example, I think customer service, while still will be requiring humans to kind of speak to customers over a period of time, that will get phased away. A lot of emails which are coming inside companies and responses going out will have significant AI components which will do a very high degree of auto reply, right? So I think there is huge opportunity for both optimization and improving productivity, both at an individual level, which is anyway kind of taken off on its own, and also for companies which will try to now, scale up and, catch up with, everybody else who's now utilizing AI to kind of significantly raise their productivity.
Okay. I think one of the conversations would also be, how to really bridge the gap between technical and non-technical roles going forward, Karthik, because as you mentioned, it's not so much about not having enough jobs in India as opposed to not having the right kind of skills which make one employable. In times like these, technical roles seem to be vanishing. We see lower level, entry level jobs seem to be sort of vanishing. And a lot has got to do, of course, with how AI is being implemented and being adopted, at least in IT services and various other technical roles. How does one really find a balance on where AI can be utilized when it comes to, technical and non-technical roles? Because, let's accept it. A lot of people now are of the belief that as far as technical roles is concerned, well, that can be filled in by maybe if 10 people were doing it, 1 or 2 people can do it, but non-technical roles, while managerial roles where you've got to be more creative, which is where AI perhaps is not there just as yet. So non-technical roles is perhaps where we could see some growth going forward.
No, you're right, Shweta. I think technical roles, I think the fear is understandable. I think a lot of basic level software testing or even software development for that matter is definitely, going to go out of fashion with more improved, AI engines coming into place. However, non-technical roles as well are getting a significant productivity boost. If you look at marketing and sales team, I think their ability to kind of craft content, or even, shape up brands becomes significantly improved with the use of, AI engines. If you look at, in the business we are in, which is recruitment, I think our ability to screen, resumes or shortlist resumes has a significant force multiplier. What would possibly require, hours of man hours to kind of search through resumes would now possibly be done by, advanced engines which can look at and really be able to contextualize who's the right fit for the job. So even for non-technical jobs, I would say this is going to be a significant, booster. Of course, there are, considerations around bias and ethical use of AI, which will kind of come into play, which companies have to kind of work around. But it would be incorrect to say that only the technical roles would be there. Again, I think the other aspect of it is also, Shweta, even for technical roles, I don't think so. What is going to go away is largely the mundane work, right? I think there will be a tremendous opportunity for many to be able to upscale and, utilize it for other kind of more productive jobs in that.
All right, and before I let you go, I have to ask you, I think a lot of conversation, of course, about how far is AI good to be used on a daily basis. And when we talk about the kind of work that I do as a journalist, I think it gets very tricky. The ethical use of AI. Can I use AI to perhaps write copies for me or write an introduction where I introduce you as a guest on my show? There's no clarity on ethical use of AI just as yet. Where do we draw the lines? Where do companies draw the lines in absence of a guiding framework? We don't have a guiding framework just as yet, Karthik, and so where should we draw a line?
No, Shweta, you are right. I think, this is extremely fast evolving. I mean, in your previous segment where you were speaking about the AI summit as well, I think one of the large aspects which is being debated globally is to kind of create a framework for ethical usage, right? I mean, there is something real called AI disillusionment. It might start imagining some answers and being able to give you absolutely inaccurate information, which you might then utilize it to your embarrassment. So I think first things first is, I think individual companies and I think even corporations will have to come and draw a framework as to where you can utilize it to be able to, productively improve your work output.
Right.
But anything which, for example, will utilize creativity, I think is going to be in demand. You can choose, AI to kind of come up with content, etc., and all that. But then on the same side, there are enough tools which are not going to call you out, saying this, the output which you have put across is not exactly the right output. So I think the system will evolve to have a check and balance on its own. For now, I think everybody should utilize it for what it is, a huge productivity booster, at an individual level. But companies will need to draw framework and lines as to, where you should not be impersonating, content which is clearly not yours.
Okay, and quickly, in less than 30 seconds, how do I use AI to be more productive?
I think many ways. I think, clearly being able to, research. I mean, there are AI engines if you want to learn about a topic. For example, if I have to take a name, Perplexity, you put across data, you want to learn on a topic, you will get enough information right now and contextual information. So I think that's used. A second thing is, you want to send out a mail and you want to be slightly softer in your tonality. Well, you can give the right prompts to make sure if you have the content, it gives you the, softer version of the mail that you want to send across to a colleague or to a friend or whatever that might be.
So if I have to polish my language, if I have to research, I think AI can be put to good use to increase my productivity. We are, of course, discussing all of that on the National Productivity Day, which is today. Karthik Narayanan, thank you very much for taking time out. Always a pleasure speaking to you on the show.
Thank you, Shweta.
And India's Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. V. Anantha Nageswaran, has projected that the rupee's depreciation may slow down if India maintains its inflation within the 3 to 4% range. Speaking at an event, Nageswaran emphasized that the current weakness of the rupee is largely driven by persistent strength of the US dollar rather than any structural issue within the India's economy. He also noted that while developed economies have struggled to reduce inflation below 3%, India's relatively stable inflation rate could help cushion the rupee fall. His remarks came on the same day as the Indian rupee appreciated by 61 paise, reaching 86.84 against the US dollar, following a period of volatility that saw the currency nearing 88 level earlier in the week. Now, talking on Chinese investments, Nageswaran also stated that India is not expected to lift its ban anytime soon. The CEA emphasized the importance of mutual understanding and cooperation between India and China for any future changes. He added that any shift in India's policy regarding Chinese investment would not be immediate, as both countries are dealing with difficult situation. And Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, in a speech addressing the budget in Parliament on Tuesday, also highlighted that the entire borrowing for 25-26 will be directed towards financial capital expenditure. The government has set an ambitious target for capital expenditure for financial year 26 amounting to 15.48 lakh crore rupees, or about 4.3% of the GDP. Now, the fiscal deficit for the upcoming year is also projected at 4.4% of the GDP. Finance Minister noted that budget was presented amid a period of uncertainty uncertainty, and government's commitment to investing in both economy and people remains strong, while also pointing out that food inflation has moderated and overall retail inflation is within 2 to 6% band. Sitharaman said that several global and domestic factors are influencing the value of the rupee, and the data shows that Indian rupee in fact has depreciated 3.3% against the US dollar between October to Jan of 2025. And shifting focus now to some other global stories we are tracking. Canada and Mexico and the EU has now condemned US President Donald Trump's new steel and aluminium tariffs, warning of a potential global trade war. US Fed Chair Jerome Powell says no urgent need for rate cuts as US economy remains strong with inflation above target. Wall Street ends mixed as Coca-Cola and Apple rise, Tesla tumbles, and investors assess Powell's remarks on interest rates. Apple's iPhones assembled in India achieved 1.62 trillion rupee mark in market revenue, nearly matching Tata Steel's earnings for the same period. OpenAI reject Elon Musk's $97 billion offer to buy non-profit controlling AI startup. CEO Sam Altman says offer is ridiculous. And Donald Trump signs executive order pausing prosecution under the Foreign Corruption Practices Act, citing obstacles to the US business abroad. Next, Peng and Geely share prices drop as BYD introduces free market driving features, sparking concerns of a price war in China's EV market. And most Germans are concerned about economy and high prices as election approaches amid fears of a downturn and political dissatisfaction. Europe's largest travel operator TUI shares drop over 9% as bookings growth slows despite strong first quarter profit and optimistic outlook for the year ahead.
One look and I'm falling for you like crazy. Oh, boom, boom. Every heartbeat is only for you. Every breath, every moment with you. My heart goes boom, boom.
Unlimited Life. Bookings open on 14th February.
Hello everyone, this is Papon and I am coming to Dilwalo Ki Dilli this Valentine's Day to perform for the World Travel and Tourism Festival.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. In a move that's sparking global backlash, Mexico, Canada and European Union have now strongly condemned US President Donald Trump's decision to impose tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports starting next month. The announcement was reigniting fears of trade war, with key allies now warning of retaliatory measures as well. How will this impact global trade and diplomatic ties? The report tells you more.
U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to impose tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports starting next month received condemnation from Canada, Mexico, and the European Union Tuesday and fanned fears of a potential global trade war. Here's Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
We will be working with the administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians of these unacceptable tariffs. We'll also be working with our international partners and friends. And if it comes to that, our response, of course, would be firm and clear.
Trump signed proclamations late on Monday raising the U.S. tariff rate on aluminum to 25% from his previous 10% rate and eliminating country exceptions and quota deals, as well as hundreds of thousands of product-specific tariff exclusions for both metals.
This is the beginning of making America rich again.
The measures due to take effect on March 12th will apply to millions of tons of steel and aluminum imports from Canada, Brazil, Mexico, South Korea, and other countries that had been entering the U.S. duty-free under the carve-outs. Mexican Finance Minister Marcelo Ebrard called the steel and aluminum tariffs unfair.
México importa más acero de Estados Unidos.
He said Mexico imports more steel from the United States than it exports, so the tariff is not justified. Across the Atlantic, European Union Trade Commissioner Maro Šefčovič said the tariffs would hurt Americans.
By imposing tariffs, the US will be taxing its own citizens, raising costs for its own business, and fueling inflation. In addition, tariffs are not only harmful for the trading partners directly involved, but also risk having disruptive effects for many others, as well as the global trading system as a whole. Put simply, it is a lose-lose scenario.
Businesses around the U.S., including automakers, have warned of fallout, with many manufacturing-heavy companies finding it difficult to plan next steps or determine if Trump will follow through. Ford Motor CEO Jim Farley said Trump's proposed and implemented tariffs have added, quote, a lot of cost and a lot of chaos. But he said he believes the president aims to strengthen the U.S. auto industry overall. Still, more tariffs could be coming. Trump said he was considering them on cars, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals.
And the U.S. Federal Reserve is holding steady for now. Fed Chair Jerome Powell told lawmakers that the central bank is in no rush to cut interest rates again, citing a strong overall economy, low unemployment and inflation still running above Fed's 2% target. Powell's remarks come as he testified before the Senate Banking Committee, facing questions on how President Trump's policies are shaping the economy outlook.
The economy is strong overall and has made significant progress toward our goals over the past 2 years. Labor market conditions have cooled from their formerly overheated state and remain solid. Inflation has moved much closer to our 2% longer run goal, though it remains somewhat elevated. With our policy stance now significantly less restrictive than it had been, and the economy remaining strong, we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance. We know that reducing policy restraint too fast or too much could hinder progress on inflation. At the same time, reducing policy restraint too slowly or too little could unduly weaken economic activity and employment. If the economy remains strong and inflation does not continue to move sustainably toward 2%, we can maintain policy restraint for longer. If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we can ease policy accordingly. We are attentive to the risks on both sides of our dual mandate, and policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face.
And Apple is making major strides in India. The tech giant's iPhone assembled in India generated a market revenue of 1.62 trillion rupees for the first 9 months of 24-25, just a little below Tata Steel's revenue, which stood at 1.62 trillion rupees for the same period. Now remember, among India's manufacturing giants, only Tata Motors, including its Jaguar Land Rover business, reported higher revenue. And that's all we have on Morning Brief at 9 this morning. You're watching News 9.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude.